cooler than being cool? Joining us on Cool, the podcast that explores the intersections of inspiring tech, fascinating people, and captivating stories. Get ready to embrace your inner cool kid as we go behind the scenes, today's innovators and storytellers. I'm your host, Cameron Kitt, founder and CEO of Yo-Yos, You Own Your Own Stories. And today I have the privilege of chatting with Marcia Dawood, the author of Doing Good While Doing Well. I actually have the book here, and if you're listening, just go get it. We'll talk all about it and all about investing and women kind of taking control of their own lives. Marcia, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So take me back to the origin story behind writing this book. What was that inciting incident for you?
Yeah, so in 2012, someone invited me to an angel investing meeting, and I thought, oh, cool. What is that? No idea what you're talking about. But I went to the first meeting. I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the time, and I was so incredibly fascinated to learn that there were entrepreneurs living right in my backyard doing really, really cool stuff and inventing things and then making them into companies and hiring people and creating jobs and doing all this great stuff. And I had no idea. And I certainly didn't think I could get involved in it because that's only for rich people and well-connected people and people who get invited, right? Or the people that you see on TV who fly in private planes. I did not think it was for me. So I kept going to the meetings and I thought, this is really neat, learning all about this stuff. And I can get involved and you actually care about my opinion and you want to hear, what I have to say. So this was pretty neat. And then I quickly learned how little funding goes to women and people of color who have really great ideas. Like women, for example, like we're 50% of the population and we're only getting like 2 to 3% of the venture capital funding. In angel world, it is a little bit better, but it's still pretty bleak. And so you can't tell me that half the population only has like 3% of the good ideas. Right? That doesn't make sense. So I started to get, even more involved in different groups because of my husband's job. We ended up moving around the country quite a bit over a 10-year period, which was actually good because I was already on the board of the Angel Capital Association, which is the national angel investing society or professional organization for angel investors. So I got to meet a lot of people and I got to learn a lot of different things that were going on all through our amazing country. And I find out that there are entrepreneurs in every city, in every town, and they can get help from all kinds of different people for a little bit of money, a lot of money, a little bit of time, a lot of time. And people that I would talk to just had no idea. It wasn't like they didn't want to be involved or they didn't want to help entrepreneurs. They just had no idea this was something that was accessible to them. So I started a podcast in 2021 called The Angel Next Door to talk about this, to start to get more people to see themselves as angels. Some people might remember the book, The Millionaire Next Door. This was kind of a play on words with that because The Millionaire Next Door was trying to explain how people can make a lot of money and it could be your next door neighbor because in a lot of cases they're not flashy and things like that. Right. So I started featuring different people, basically my friends who were also angel investors and how did you become an angel? Why did you become an angel? All those kinds of things. And then I realized that there were a ton more whys than there was just, I just do it so that I can make money. Yeah. And people can make money. Okay, let me just be very clear. We as angel investors do want to make money. We want to make a return. However, this is an illiquid asset, meaning that you cannot buy and sell it like you can a public stock. But you can also help companies to grow. You can help innovation to get into the world. And I thought that's pretty cool. And I could also help create jobs and do all these other things. And then I also figured out, what? I also get to meet some really cool people along the way. And how great is that? And here we are. I thought, well, the best way to talk about this after the podcast was gotta write a book.
Gotta write a book. And the podcast kind of sets you up for it, right? And I mean, so what I love about this book, first of all, it's very readable. And I'm not just trying to blow, smoke up your book, but this book is so story laden because that's my whole thing, right? It's one thing to talk. I need stories of real women doing this and the real companies they invest in. And here's how to put your money where your passion is. What do you actually care about? It made it so real. And I think a lot of that probably came from the podcast giving you a lot of fodder, but it was very helpful. So I highly recommend it because Yeah, I think just to build on that, I not only thought angel investing wasn't for me, I thought it was like only for men, right? Subconsciously,
Right, right. Yes.
there's just a lot of permission that women need. And like, it wasn't until I went to see your book talk and talking to other women that I had even thought about it, right? So I was like reading your book and I was like, da, da, da. No, I had never thought about being able to put my own money where my mouth was, where my passion was, and help other people. So I think that's really the takeaway is like angel investing isn't just for rich men. It's a way to drive change in our world. And here's how to do it. And here's how to get started. And you don't have to put 10,000 down. You can put
Right.
less. You can actually start small, and I'm pretty sure companies won't say no to your money if you want to give them money of some size. So I want to ask a lot about, we say cool tech, cool people, cool stories. You've met so many cool people. You also, on the SEC committee, right? SEC advisory committee, yes.
The Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee. It's a big mouthful, but yes.
And you're a TEDx speaker in this podcast, so you're really kind of blasting this message in every possible way. Can you just tell me what are some examples of cool, like mind-blowing and shockingly cool technology you've seen come from BIPOC or women-owned companies that's kind of
Yes.
out there?
Oh, there's so many. But I will talk a lot about, and I talk a lot in the book, and I also talk a lot in the podcast about women's health.
Mm-hmm.
Because women, as our mutual friend, Brittany Barretto, Dr. Brittany Barretto, who's amazing, says, I will quote her, women are not little men.
They're
So
not small men.
we are not small men. We need a lot of advances in healthcare where we are looked at as completely separate from men, especially when it comes to our reproductive health. Because guess what? We don't have the same parts they do. We
No.
need change, right? So, one of the really cool technologies that came out, I would say this had to have been at least 6 or 7 years ago that I first learned about the company, is a company called Rosie, and they're out of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Lindsay Harper, she's an OBGYN, is the CEO, and she's just incredible. And she started by talking about women's sexual health. And that's something that we don't really talk about very often. And a lot of people were like, ooh, taboo, we don't talk about that. But she started out by having an app that allowed people to read sexy stories, think about their overall sexual health. They had a lot of education, a lot of places that you could have discussion that was completely private, so that people could feel heard, they could feel seen with whatever issues that they were having. But fast forward, Dr. Lindsay Harper has taken this to another level. And now Rosie has become pretty much like the OBGYN in your pocket. And
Wow.
I love this because you can, again, with the discussions, but now it's expanded so much. So imagine the mother who has postpartum depression and she has no idea what's really going on because this is her first baby. And, where does she go? I mean, sure, you can go to Facebook groups and things like that, but like, where could you actually go where you could talk to a doctor or multiple doctors or something like that? This is all information that is through the Rosie app. And there's different levels then that you can, be as far as a member, which I also love, because in some cases you're not going to always need everything. And in other cases, you're going to need everything right now. So it's a lot of like being able to adapt to what people's needs are at that particular time and meeting them where they are. So I just
Amazing.
love what they're doing. And I love this idea of having an OBGYN in your pocket because, geez, how many times have we gone to Google and been like, oh
Dr.
my
Google.
gosh. Yeah, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Google. What? And
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Google is not a good place to go. You end up finding a lot of things.
Dr. Google says you will pass away in 13.5 hours. That's
Right.
almost every time. I'm like,
Yes.
cool.
And not only do you have the ailment that you've looked up, you have 10 other ailments also. Right? Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do
And
that to
I'm an
yourself.
anxious person. And
Yeah.
if I talk to the doctor, I'm like, I am sorry. I have done research. And they're like, oh, here we go. First of all, that's so interesting. Like, I think femtech is an area where I'm really seeing this specifically shine, where Dr. Barretto, who we both know, has said, women are now 50% of the workforce. So when we need to be out for big medical issues, it is affecting the bottom line. Now it is a really serious issue. And also there are a lot more wealthy women in the workforce who are interested in getting menopause care, who are willing to invest to have the availability. And so we're kind of there's a movement starting, and it just makes me grateful because I've often wondered about that. There's a great documentary called Periodical. Have you seen it with Naomi Watts? She kind of
No, I'll have to watch it.
and there's other. I think Halle Berry is also working in a menopause space where
Yes.
really
Yep.
proud that there are celebrities who are like, I'm done. No, we got to talk about this. Like,
Yes.
not only
Yes.
talk about it but have care available. So another technology that reminds me of is I met with Valentina Milanova from Day. Do you know them? They produce tampons that can replace a pap smear. So you can put in the tampon, it takes.
Yes, I have heard of this.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
I was like, this is the cool technology because no woman has ever been like, I cannot wait to go get a
Yeah,
pap. I'm so
that's right.
excited and thrilled to have that. So this idea of like there's so much cool technology that's being developed to meet a need. And what's so amazing about your I guess call to arms is that we can support the things that we need and stop waiting for the system to not give us to us. Can you just explain a little bit of the like what does the we're not small men thing mean in femtech?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, think about it. And if people, especially like, let's just take something super simple like a drug, even like something, an over the counter drug like Advil. Okay. It says on there an adult dosage is XYZ or whatever it is. Um, that's so general. My husband and I are not the same size or weight. And so, but yet, if you look at an adult dose, it basically says that we should take the same amount of medicine. And I mean,
Hmm.
it pick any medicine, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make any sense to me. And now I just take that's like the very, very simple version. Take that to another level of like heart disease or cancer or things like that, that yes, it could be a disease that affects both genders, but unlike some that are specific to women because of our reproductive systems. But hey, we need to have a way that we can be tested, and a lot of people don't realize how incredibly prevalent heart disease is in women, and why are we only doing tests and all kinds of interventions and treatments and potential cures for heart disease on just men? Like, we need to have a lot more trials, a lot more ways to think about how are women going to be treated differently and more effectively, as well as men being treated effectively for who they are and who we are.
Yeah, it wasn't until gosh, only like 5 years ago that it was legally required for women to be involved in clinical trials. So they were just so far behind.
Right.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
so far behind
Yeah.
how like the biochemistry of our different, and I think that this also speaks to racial issues as well. Traditionally, it's also just white men, so it's a small
That's
subset of the
that's
world.
yes. Yes.
College age white men doesn't really represent people, but we are working to get there. So you got invited to this angel group, and you were like, "Who, little old me?" Then you
Yeah.
start doing it. I assume you started investing and
Mhm.
seeing the benefit of feeling the benefit and also getting returns, right? So it's both emotional and soul satisfying as well as bank account satisfying, right? I mean, it's a little bit more.
Can
I
be.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say risky. Yeah, it's like not. It's not the same as the stock market, which I'm glad you reaffirmed. Um, yeah, and I think it's also important to say like you're not guaranteed a return, right?
Absolutely not. Yes, it is a
It's
risky
like
asset class.
well, it's like
Mhm.
being a producer in a film, and you're making a bet, and you've also produced help be a producer for a really amazing film, Show Her the Money. We can talk about, but I guess my question is: so you start writing this book. What was one of the biggest plot twists that you had to overcome in writing this book and getting it out there?
Well, this isn't a topic that everybody's talking about. So let's just say that I'm not really a trendy topic. Somebody said
Hmm.
it to me like that the other day, and I thought to myself, you know what? That's it. That is what my problem is. So I'm talking about this, and people will hear, and they may, they'll listen to this podcast episode, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I can get involved. I can get involved. Cool.
Yes.
I'll go read her book, and I'll go get involved." No, so it's not quite that simple, because I really do think that people need to hear it from multiple sources. They need to see other people doing it. And that is happening in my world, and probably even a little bit in your world, because
Hmm.
you deal with fundraising and companies and
Yeah.
raising money for your projects and your documentaries and things like that.
Yep.
So in our immediate circles, we're seeing it. But
Yeah.
the average person in their immediate circle are not. So they'll hear me talk about it, and maybe I'm the very first person that they've ever heard talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's great. But then because it's not really a trending topic, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Next thing. Cause I mean, we're bombarded with information, all of us. It's
Yeah.
nobody's fault. It's just the way life is, right?
Yes.
So now I'm kind of at the point where, especially in my podcast, it's where I really want to talk more about women and money,
Mm.
because that's something that I think we haven't. It's almost like I'm trying to talk about something way over here related to what you can do with your money in order to do good in the world, which I think people love, and they love that idea. But they're like, well, wait a minute, I don't even know what I'm doing with my money in general, because I've heard a lot of women tell me they have a lot more money than they should in a checking account. They really don't know that much about investing, and they're not comfortable with it. Their husbands do it. Their ex-husband did it, and now they're in charge of their own money. And now what are they going to do? I mean, there's just so many factors. And us as women, we have so many responsibilities with, an army of things that we have to do. How can we start to make women more comfortable? Because it's happening. We are going to be the people who have these trillions of dollars of wealth that are being transferred as the older generations are leaving money to the younger generations. And how do we make it so that women overall, now again, I know I'm making blanket statements, and I don't mean to put everybody in one bucket, but as a general statement, we as women are not that great about figuring out how can we take our money and really do good with it in all aspects. And I'm just talking about this one little aspect over here. And because we haven't really thought about the whole big picture, that's where I think we're struggling a little bit.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is like you're talking about doing breaststrokes, and we're all still in the baby pool.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Like
Yes.
like there's a deep, like the deep end, right? And there's that person. What I'm hearing is the biggest challenge with the book is the cultural shift that is required. And I often speak about how important celebrities are to like giving promotion, but this is kind of one where it wouldn't work as well to hear celebrities talking about investing, because it would make me feel more different and more separate. I'll be like, oh well,
Exactly.
of course Naomi Watts can do that, but and then it would actually reinforce this feeling that it was not for me. So
That's
yeah,
right.
that's a big old question, right? And so what I'm hearing and what I heard in the conversations at your book event that I went to in New York was so good. There's a woman named Cheryl from Let's Play Money. I don't know if you know her.
Oh yeah.
She was saying,
Yeah.
yeah,
Know
I
her
talk
well.
to
Yep.
women all the
Mhm.
time, and they say they might be somewhat wealthy women, and then she says, okay, well, what are you investing in? And she goes, well, my husband does that. I do the what's it called, donations, the giving,
Yeah.
the
Philanthropic money.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, this idea of like this gender divide that women do philanthropy and men do investing. I'm really grateful that my dad taught me from a young age just about the stock market in general. And I've become like this surrogate, making sure everyone has 401ks and Schwab accounts person in my friend group. I'm like, are we investing? Are we
Yeah.
investing? Just like forcing it because, it's so true. Women having all this money in their checking account when they could be doing so much more. But I think what I took away from the book is this idea of like it being a balm for this anxiety that we have about the world. I feel
Yeah.
so trapped that I can't do anything. It's like, well, it is actually not that hard to give some money to a cause you care about and then feel like you're really making a difference directly.
Yeah.
But I hear you. I mean, what do you think it's going to take to make that cultural shift, Marcia?
I just think we have to keep talking about it. We have to
Hmm.
keep demystifying and making it, to your point. And you know what? I hadn't really thought about it like that. I'm so glad you said that about the celebrities, because in something like Joylux, which is a company I talk about in my book, and you brought it up earlier, Halle Berry she's a huge champion on menopause, and she has partnered with that company. And it was recently announced that they have a partnership now. Joylux is a sexual wellness company, pelvic floor health, and much more. They're a little bit like a different version of Rosie. They're trying to help, solve a lot of women's health issues, health concerns. And Halle Berry can help with that because she can bring awareness. We're all having, some issues at some point as women about, what we're dealing with, whether we're young and we're having fertility issues, whether
Yep.
we're parents and we have,
Yep.
all those issues, or we're in menopause, whatever the story is. Right. So, but when we're talking about money, we don't want to be looking at a celebrity because we're like, well, yeah, sure, they can do that. They have all the money in the world, right? Or that's what we think. And, anyway, that's a whole other story we could talk about.
Yeah.
But we need to see more people. Hence the reason why I started the podcast Angel Next Door, because I wanted people to see themselves in that. But I
Yeah.
think, to your point, we need to have even more of that. So nowadays you can invest for as little as $50 through an equity crowdfunding platform, but we're not telling a lot of stories about like who are the people that are actually investing on those platforms.
Exactly.
Who are they, and are they are they somebody who knew the company, or do they now have now that they have a vested interest in the company, are they going to help market the things that the company's doing? I don't know. Like, I think that's another thing that we could be talking about.
Yeah, it's like I only give myself permission when I see individuals that I can relate to doing the thing. And that's why I focus so much on storytelling. And that leads us very well into our quick ad break. This podcast is brought to you by Yo-Yos. You own your own stories, a documentary storytelling company that demystifies cutting edge technology with emotional human stories. If you got a cool story to share, we can help you get it out there. Have to plug myself because I mean it works on like this is what I try to do is so similar to what you try to do, and that you try to say over and over, here's a woman, here's a woman, here's a woman, here's a woman. You had one 4 days ago. Like, you have so many women on this. You have what, 120 episodes. It's not all women. It's not all
No,
women.
no, it's
There,
not women.
I think we
Lots of
should
guys,
like
lots of guys.
eliminate. This is we're giving permission to men as well, right? It's just I
Right.
tend to focus on that,
100%.
but that's where a lot of change can be made. You've had so many people come on the podcast. Like, I'm just looking at like Gina Cox and Trisha Compass Markham, and like, you're trying to say, hey, look, this is a person who you can relate to. I think that is the challenge, is like, what are the other ways that we can infiltrate media? I'm going to guess things like TikTok. Weirdly, TikTok and Instagram are where people are getting financial tips now, right?
Yep.
So I think that's one area where we can start to break through. And in books like yours, podcasts, and then trying to get those conversations happening. Like, one way would be for women to put this as their next book club book, and then have conversations around money. How many of your friends, if you're listening to this podcast, man or woman, how many of your friends do you talk to about your wealth plan, your investments? For me, it's like only two of my friends. I'll be honest. It's crazy. So, yeah, I guess I kind of want to come back around, Marcia. What do you wish people listening to this podcast knew?
Just how easy it is and how accessible it is to be able to invest in the change that you want to see in the world. So if there's something that you really care about, if it's something that you would like to get involved in, just knowing that not just your opinion matters and what you care about matters, but your skills matter. There are companies all the time that are looking for help with their companies. And I don't mean you have to go work for them for free or anything crazy like that. I'm just talking like just being an advisor to an early stage company, especially one that has a very diverse team, is so important, because you may have a network that could allow doors to be open. I talk in my book about, just having the ability to get your product into Target or something like that, or a big, retail chain. Those are the types of things that people don't realize. Oh my gosh, I have some type of value that you bring. It could be even, I'm really good at bookkeeping. And you know how much that could be of value to even getting them set up. I'm not even talking like you have to become their bookkeeper or anything like that, but just like making sure that they have what they need as a company that's growing. Sometimes companies are growing so fast and the CEO is trying to do 18 things, and they end up hiring one or two people, 5 people now, whatever they are, and they're trying to do all these things, and they need people who can come in who are experts in certain areas. And it doesn't have to be like you're an expert in legal formation of a startup company. It could be a lot of different things that you could add value.
Yeah, startups often need a big leg up to get over the chasm.
Yes.
Again, this event that we were at, a woman pitched the idea to me. She's like, well, why don't you make films instead of investing as equity, and like make a film for a company that doesn't have the money to pay you $30,000 and pay them, get equity. And my mind was utterly blown, Marcia. I was like, what? I could totally do that. I more or less have done that for a few companies that I really care about. I'm interested in solar punk and sustainability. And so there are a few companies I've worked with that, it's such a discounted rate just to get them something, because they needed that story, that video that looked good, right? So I did that. I definitely like put my skills up front and said, okay, I really want this to get out there. and just using, I guess we're like playing the game of capitalism, right? I want this product to succeed. How can I help? And I like what you say about just opening doors. It is always about who you know,
It
right? Who you
is.
know, not what you know. And so if you're a startup founder, you just have to be networking so hard. So what I'm taking away is, like, for instance, my friend who lives in Richmond, Virginia, who's a mom of two and like head of marketing at a mortgage company, she would be perfect. Like, I know, I'm not saying I'm not trying to like give away her income, but like she's I would say like moderate and income, can handle things, and really is passionate and cares. So it's like, how do I get that friend over the
Right.
hump? I guess just start, because she lives in Richmond, right? She might, like you said, these entrepreneurs are everywhere.
They're
Um,
everywhere.
so it's not like this idea of, oh, I need to be in LA, I need to be in Chicago, I need to be in Miami to meet these people. What would you recommend my friend do? We'll call her Elsa.
So, along with the book, I did write a workbook. And as the author of it, I am horrible at telling people about it because I've been so focused on telling people about the book. And it's a lot, as you know, we've just talked for over 25 minutes about the concepts in the book, and we only scratched the surface so far. But the workbook does have some exercises. And one of them I think is really kind of fun, and you could play it with your whole family and it doesn't cost anything, which is that you can think about just an arbitrary amount of play money. In the workbook, I talk about $2,500 just in
Hmm.
your mind, not
Hmm.
real money. Okay. Just play money, like Monopoly money.
Hmm.
And go on to a couple of the crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding sites, or there's a couple debt crowdfunding sites too, like Honeycomb Credit, and you can put some of these in your show notes. The three main equity crowdfunding sites that have the main market share are Republic, WeFunder, and Start Engine. So you could just pick one. Doesn't matter what it is. I have no, skin in the game on any of them. And basically pick one and then start to just look around and think to yourself, what if I had $2,500 and I was going to invest in 10 companies, maybe? I don't know, pick a number. 10 is usually good to start to get diversification. I talk a lot about that in the book. Like, what does it mean to have a diversified portfolio? Because these are risky, investments. So you want to, kind of put a lot of chips on the board, I guess you might say. And so that would be something that you could do. You can learn all about the cool technologies that are going on. And as a family, it's kind of a cool dinner conversation, especially if you have kids, really anywhere from the age of like 7 to teenagers and above. But if they can start to understand the concepts of what's happening in the world, what kind of change do we want to see in the world, and the fact that they too can get involved, and could be an investor for as little as $100 or $250. I mean, that is a concept that I just don't think people even realize that could be the beginning of their journey here. And it's just such a great learning experience. It's a great way as a family to be talking about something that's totally different that you don't usually talk about, and also ways to educate your the younger generation on financial literacy and the things that can be done with money in order to help make change in the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Like, I went on Start Engine. There's like all sorts of stuff that's relevant to me, right? The eVTOLs and flying cars, and there's like air to water. There's so much clever stuff. But basically, these are um, the Indiegogos of investing in
That's
a way,
exactly
right?
right.
Just get right in there. And so we're having. I like how you say also change your perception of yourself and
Yeah,
how you interact with the world and how do you help others. Um, but then what you also walk people through in the book is like, well, how do I analyze, right? And so
right.
maybe that's in the workbook as well, right? So there's a lot
It
of
is.
reasons why we and me as a woman would say, I'm going to start this process and then I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to stop because of imposter syndrome. I'm going to immediately say, despite the fact that I've now run 2 different businesses, I'm still not sure how I know whether or not a business is doing well.
That's
And
right.
that's just internalized misogyny. But I'm sure that it will happen to men too, right? If there's people who don't think they have the requisite experience or have an MBA, um, yeah, I guess the answer always just comes back to read the book and read the workbook and listen to Marcia's podcast. But I'm going to say it. You have permission.
That's right.
You have
Well,
permission to invest.
to your point, that I'm so glad you said it like that, because in a lot of cases I do talk to people and I'll be like, "Well, how come you haven't actually started to do it yet?" And they'll
Mhm.
say, "Well, I just got overwhelmed. I feel like I have to know everything before
Yep.
I actually make a decision." And
Yep.
that's why that one particular exercise, and you don't even have to have the workbook to do it. Literally, I just
Right.
told you what it was. You know, pick an arbitrary amount of money, go on one of these sites and just play around, and you can learn so much about just how these companies are organized. What I love about the sites is they are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So there is a certain amount of information that needs to be on every single one of the offerings on those sites. Mm-hmm. And what I like about that is you can start to see what would you say, like similarities in how it's structured. So now you aren't realizing it, but you're actually becoming a more savvy investor because you're seeing what is being looked at in every one of the companies. And so you can start to see the commonalities and like what's a little bit different between what they're saying. But at the end of the day, the other thing I really like is that on these platforms, it is mandated that all questions and answers have to be on the site. So let's say that I happen to know one of the CEOs who had a company up there raising money. Well, if I just sent them a text message and said, hey, I have a question about your online offering, they cannot legally really answer me on my text thread. They have to go onto the platform and say, I just got this question. Here's the question. And here's the answer. And so now everything is very transparent. It's all in one place. And I find that if you start to read the comments, I mean, you do have to scroll down a little bit because you're going to read some of the stuff about each of the companies. But as you're scrolling down, you can get to the question and answer or the comment section, and it is fascinating the things that you will learn, because you'll be thinking to yourself, oh, you know what? I was thinking that. And somebody else asked a question and now I know the answer. Or you'll read a question and be like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? I do that all the time. And like, I've been an investor for a long time. There's so many questions that people who are brand new will ask. And I'll be like, duh, why didn't I think of that? I didn't even think of that. It's great.
They have to answer your question publicly.
They have to answer the question publicly. Yes.
That's really, so it like teaches you, again, this is like you're going to school by doing, people learn better. Yes. But this still is, it is an investment of time. But if you're one of those people that spends time on a Reddit thread reading about stocks, you might as well start doing this. Exactly. And get up close and make change happen. And I mean, this is where you can tip the scales. I mean, what you said about how much women-founded companies get invest. I mean, that's what Show Her the Money is all about. I feel like I've eye rolled so much that my eyes will get stuck at this point when like, oh, gosh, I can't talk about this anymore. That's and right. What I appreciate about your call to arms is yeah, we don't need to like do that anymore. Like, let's just stop and go straight to the source of the people who are going to benefit from your technology. Women who have menopause or who are perimenopausal, right? Women who are like women who are in their late 30s. Boom, here we go. You're coming up on it. What would you say? My last question is, let's make a bet. What would you say is the most outlandish prediction you have for the future that most people might not agree with you on, or that like you tend to stand by that other people might not?
So if you think about how easy it is today to buy and sell a public stock, and think about what that was like in the 80s or 90s. Okay. I remember my dad, not that he was a big stock person, but even if he had wanted to buy a stock, it was like you had to get a person to go to the stock exchange. You had to have an account. It had to be funded ahead of time. There were all these things. I actually outline it in my book about exactly what you had to do. And it was very laborious and it took a long time. And now we can go on to E-Trade, Robinhood, name the platform, and you can literally buy and trade or buy and sell within a minute, probably a couple seconds, the same share of stock or even a partial share of the stock. It's like crazy how easy it is. Crazy. And think about if we could have that with the private markets, because the amount of companies out there that are publicly traded is just such a small fraction compared to all of the private companies that are out there. But the private market is a little bit like the wild, wild west. And like I was saying before about what I like about the equity crowdfunding sites and how they are regulated by the SEC is that there is a lot of things that they have to be there. There's disclosures that they have to have, and they have to put at least, partially of whatever it is that they know has to be up on those sites. So imagine if we could have the private markets be as easy to navigate, as transparent, and as easy for people to get involved in as E-Trade has now become for the public markets. I mean, to me, that would be like fascinating. Like, imagine how much easier it would be for entrepreneurs to fundraise. Imagine how much easier it would be for people to back the things that they wanted to see in the world. It's going to take a while to get there. Actually, I had a podcast episode where I've had everybody from those 3 major platforms I mentioned, equity crowdfunding platforms, come on to my podcast. But I did have the CEO recently. Most recently, I had the CEO of Republic come on. And at the end of the conversation, it was really fascinating. We had this talk about, does he believe that we can see true democratization of the private markets? And he believes it. And that's what they're trying to do at Republic. So fascinating. Some people would not believe me. I'm sure that the SEC is going to have a lot to say about it, because there does need to be investor protections. There needs to be a lot of disclosures, transparency, all those things, which was why, we love that we live in a country that does protect us. But at the same time, we do have to make capital formation easier for entrepreneurs. And that's really that's the big thing I care about.
Because it's an equity thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the day, there's so much like if we want to create equity in our society, we need to give more people access to creating and changing the wealth they have. I was only able to start my own business because I had run a business. I got lucky, right? I had someone believe in me, and I was able to build wealth by running a company. And I just had so many doors open for me that most of my friends didn't have. I lucked into that. It's we need to create the hallway where the doors can be open to people, so that not the same types of people are able to start and run companies, and that will have a trickle down effect into our society. So that, more people, I would, in an interesting way, from the nerd side, Kickstarter has allowed a lot of tech and games and things to come straight to the market of the people who are going to use it. Right.
That's right.
So I feel like that's basically the same thing. And also technology changes so quickly, right, Marcia? I don't think it's impossible. The adoption of these kinds of platforms was really fast, and they have stayed somewhat consistent. Unfortunately, Indiegogo is the number 1 provider of healthcare in the US. Oof. Sad. But it is used heavily. So my last question is, we've talked about cool technology. Who do you think would be a fantastic guest to come on this show?
Oh, you should definitely ask Dr. Lindsay Harper of Rosie, or Colette Corian of Joylux.
Fantastic. I would really love to talk to them. Well, thank you so much. And this has been an episode of Cool, Cool, Cool featuring Marcia Dawood, the author of Do Good While Doing Well. It's not an act of doing, but if you search Do Good While Doing Well, you'll find it in the workbook, and also her podcast, The Angel Next Door. I'll have links to that, her website, and as you mentioned, a couple of those capital investing sites. Did I say that right?
They're equity crowdfunding sites or debt crowdfunding sites, but yes.
Thank you. Capital investing, sure, a little bit of a redo, but Marcia, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.